Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. And let me know if this is going to meet your needs. We're going to talk about RTI, the research spaces, and the rationale. RTI, responsiveness to intervention. Why do this thing? There's a lot of, I'm assuming you folks experience the same phenomenon we experience south of the border. A lot of educational big ideas and initiatives come through. Why pay attention to this one? What's the basis behind it? What we're going to do is we're going to talk about what are the essential components of an RTI model. It's a big model. But I think one of the things you're going to find out as we systematically go through the components, you're going to recognize, oh, I do that. Oh, we do that. Oh, we do this. Maybe we could be a little better at this. Or there might be a component, boy, we don't do that at all. We need to pull this together. But I think what you're going to find is, depending on your school, there are various components that are already in place, and you might just need to expand some efforts. We're going to talk about the influence of RTI on general ed practices. You folks would be characterized in the States as special educators. So when I say special educator, I'm saying resource, that's the same model we have. I'm saying resource teacher here, okay? So there's no confusion over terminology. I'll try to say resource teacher, but I'll probably slip back into my other nomenclature. What we're going to do is talk about how education practices that occur within the classroom with classroom teachers influences your role, and how that your role is going to be somewhat more targeted and somewhat easier. We're going to look at what do schools do in order to support this model. There's some structures that have to be in place in order to pull off all these different elements. And then at the end, I'm going to send out some materials, and if this is something that kind of interests you, that there's some materials I've developed that it's a kind of a self-assessment, and it lists the different components of an RTI model, and then the activities that a school engages in as part of that component, and you can kind of review that. So, here's what RTI, it's a process for proving educative outcomes for all students, not tall kids, not kids with just reading challenges, not kids with just math. All students benefit from the implementation of this model. One of the key points is that we're monitoring the progress of all students, not just the youngsters that we're concerned about from the outset. Why would we want to monitor the progress of every student in our school on a regular basis? They're all important for sure. So what happens over the course of time with Billy, who's doing great in September? Does Billy always do great in October and then in May? No, so part of this is that we're monitoring the progress of all students so that we can catch anyone who falls from the curriculum early on, so we don't have to wait until we have huge problems. Here's a key part. They use data to make decisions about instruction. So oftentimes we collect a lot of data, but we don't do anything with it. So in this model, we're actually using this data. In the RTI model, you adopt a new or different model of assessment, and it's the assessment they utilize instruments that take about a minute to administer, but they're highly predictive and highly reliable. And we're going to look at some of those instruments as the day progresses. So it's an efficient method of monitoring progress and checking out where kids are. This data is also helpful for the whole notion of early intervening services. Is there anyone who would disagree that if we catch a youngster who has literacy challenges as a first grader, the probability of success is greater than if we catch him as a fourth grader? And the research bears that out. We're going to look a little at that today. And on the car on the way up, I was kind of comparing notes about what's the research say about things that are happening in the U.S. And I'm going to share a lot of that with you today. And then sharing that, and without exception, every data point that I shared was believed to be consistent with what goes on with kids in Canada as well. This was something we found over the course of the 3-day Summer Institute. One of the questions I had, is this generalizable? This is something that's happening in our schools, but it is generalizable. It was clear from all the folks that I worked with this summer that the things that we're going to talk about today make sense relative to your kids. We just had this artificial demarcation dividing us. Our behaviors, well, anyway, we'll go there. And then lastly, that the information that you get from this model, and I'm going to describe our model in the States, and that kind of helps you understand why this has become so important. It's such a big initiative south of the border. But lastly, a lot of the data that you collect through this RTI process can be used to establish the existence of a learning disability.